These for sin could not atone. Thou must save, and thou alone. In my hand, no prize I bring, simply to thy cross I cling. And while I draw this fleeting breath, when my eyes shall close in death, when I rise to worlds unknown, and behold thee on thy throne, Rock of Ages, left for me. Let me hide myself in thee, Rock of Ages.
You got a red light?
Yeah, had a red light.
That's it.
Let me hide
Real good part tonight.
Hey, let's review and let's give an idea where we're at. Let me go where they can see us. Okay, if you take a look here at the chart, what you see here is we saw when Jesus died on the cross, the church age began. Before the church age, God used a country, Israel. He will use it again during the tribulation. Okay, now, the Lord died, he went up to heaven. He is our high priest in heaven. That means that if you want to talk to him anytime, you can. Okay? I was a Roman Catholic. The only time we could talk to him was go see the priest. He was our intercessor, but he wasn't a very good one. Then, of course, we saw here what this represents. This represents here the church and the Lord. Okay, that represents the light in the church. The Lord gives it. The candle in the church. If the light goes out, church is dead. So we also have to make sure that we keep the church going and be faithful and loyal to it. And then two things which thou hast seen. And so what he saw then was the church age, of course. And the things which are, the things which you have seen, and the things which will be, which will, the tribulation. Okay, so we're in the church age here, so we go from there to there. All right, and then also we took a little period here. We saw the church is divided into 7 different time periods. That's what this represents. Right now we're in the Laodicean church age. When the Laodicean church age is over, that's when the rapture takes place. That's the rapture. It means the rapture of the saints. That means that we will be taken up. Those of us who are saved are going to be taken up to meet the Lord in the air. Now, the Lord's not coming back to the earth. He's going to shout, and we are going to come up and meet him. And then also those who have died. This is death here. Those who have died now during the church age. Now, when Jesus rose from the dead here, and he rose from the dead, the Old Testament saints were resurrected. Okay? And then right here in all, we see that Israel was scattered. God's using the church, and these are the ones who died, the Christians. That's death. We're going to be raised up and go with him. Only us believers will go. All the lost people will not go at the rapture or the resurrection of the saints, okay? The Lord is known as the morning star in Scripture. He is the one who raised us from the dead. Okay, and then he will take us now into the tribulation time. We're going to be in heaven. The Bible talks about the scenes in heaven and then the scenes on earth. So he shows us what's happening down here. Then also he shows us what's happening up here in heaven. All right, today we ought to make it at least here to here and all, which is the middle of the tribulation. Remember, the tribulation is 7 years. And during that 7-year time, Israel, God's going to be using Israel again. They're regathered. They came back and became a nation in 1948. They became a nation, okay, and so they're ready to go and all, where God can let them come back in, and he will use that nation, the Jews, for 7 years. We saw that there would be 144,000 who are going to go preaching in all of the Jews. Now, when you go back to Israel, how many tribes were there? Does anybody remember? 12 tribes, okay? And so 12,000 from each tribe. How much is 12 times 12? That's what it is, 144,000. Now you got to understand that all of us are gone. The preachers are gone, the believers are gone, and then these 144,000 God raises, they get saved. And they're going to go out preaching. So you all know who Apostle Paul was. Never none like the Apostle Paul. But there are going to be 144,000 Apostle Pauls all over the earth preaching. They're going to do in a few years what the church could not do in 2,000 years. Okay? And all. And so we have a problem. You say, why couldn't the church do the job that they want to do? It deals with believers. A lot of them get saved. Never really witness to anybody. They never give anything so people can get saved. They don't tithe. They won't sacrifice. They think of me, myself, and I. That's usually what it amounts to, and all. And so I know because I was there. Okay, I was lost once, and then I became a Christian. It took me time to learn to give and to do all those things you should do, and be a witness. And all. In fact, today I went out and I forgot to take tracts with me, and to give away. I felt guilty all day because I got saved from a tract. Tracts work; they work. And Joshua ordered some new tracts today, by the way. Okay, now, so we see here that as we come now, we saw the seal. The 7-seal book was opened. That was open. That means that the Lord is going to go ahead and tell us what's going to happen during the tribulation. He was the only one who could read this book. Okay, he tells us what's going to happen during this time in history. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 things are going to happen on the earth that's going to be pretty bad. First thing is the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse come, and that's in chapter 6. They showed us what is going to happen in the tribulation and all, so we could understand it. And then to help us understand it more, he went ahead and gave us the 7 trumpet judgments and all, and that's the wrath of the Lamb and the 3 woes. Now we'll finish the 3 woes today. These are the trumpets from chapter 8 through 11, and these are going to show us what is going to be happening during that tribulation, and all the things are going to happen. That's the reason why every time a trumpet is blown, he helps us understand what's going to happen to all these lost people on earth. Now the ones who are saved during the tribulation are going to they won't suffer the judgments that all of these will. All right, and then here, the devil will be. Remember, the devil is the prince and power of the air, and don't forget that he controls his kingdom from the air. He's going to be kicked out of heaven, and all, and we're going to see that today. How he's kicked out of heaven. He's going to come to earth, but he can never go back up to heaven again. Because if you read the book of chapter Job, God asked him, where you been, devil? And he said, I've been going to and fro in the earth and up and down. So back and forth, up and down. Earth has 4 corners, the Bible says, but even though it's round. And so you can figure that out. Okay, and so we see here that after we will see, well, he's kicked out, and we're going to receive our crowns. Now, God's going to give crowns to those believers who lived back here during the church age. So that means that Sue, I know you're going to be there. I know you're a soul winner, and you also been winning souls all the years I've known you. And God has some crowns for you. I know one's the soul winner's crown. And another crown he would give us for being faithful. And I know you've been faithful. I know you'll get 2 crowns and all. And so those are some things. I'm using you as an example. Of course, I'm sure all of you have won souls. You wouldn't be here. But so anyway, we're going to turn now to our text in the Bible. So that brings you up to date. Okay, so look here now in chapter 9. Okay, we find ourselves now in chapter 9. All right. So, and look in your text. Does anybody need a textbook? Everybody have a textbook? Okay, if you need one, raise your hand. We'll get you a textbook. I think we have an extra one. You never got a textbook? You need the textbook? Let me see. Uh-oh, I'll have to get some printed. We'll get some printed this week, okay? Hello, Seal, coming in.
Sorry, I'm late. Ladies, good evening.
All righty. And also, at this time now, we're going to open in prayer and get ready to study. Brother Seal, would you open in prayer, please?
Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for another opportunity to be in your house tonight. We just thank you for all of our blessings. Be with Pastor Blanky as he teaches his class, and for all that are watching as well. That we'll all be on this time as well. Amen.
Okay, now look at chapter 9 now. Introduction is, if you'd like to sit by someone and all, so you could see the text, but we'll be mostly teaching out of the Bible. Okay, but the text here has a few things that we need to explain. And so if you listen close, you can get it. Okay, now in chapter 9, now as we came to the close of chapter 8, and that's right here. We close of chapter 8. The Bible talks about the 3 woes that God is telling us about is going to happen on the earth. Each woe represents a tragedy on earth that will affect the people of the world. Okay, that's what the woes are. Now also the trumpet judgments affect the people of the world. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse affect all the people of the world. So God gave us all of these illustrations to help us understand what's going to happen in the tribulation. In other words, he's saying, why should you go to the tribulation? He's saying, well, you know what's going to happen. I mean, every one of you, I'm sure you watched a weatherman. How many of you watched a weatherman on TV? You look, weatherman says, today it's going to rain. So you take your umbrella with you, right? Because, you listen to him. Well, the Lord told us what to do.
Amen.
And we need to listen to him. We need to get saved before it's too late, okay? And that's what he's saying. He's trying to, it's like the weatherman warns us about the weather. And so that's important to understand. So we see here, we close chapter 8 and all, the 3 more woes are given. So in other words, he's saying that some more things are going to happen during this tribulation. He didn't tell them all at once. He kind of laid them out in 3 different areas: the trumpet judgment, the woes, and all, the 7th seal book, to help us understand what's going to happen. In other words, he keeps giving us a little more each time what's happening on the earth during the tribulation. And so understand that. Okay, now verse 1 in your Bible, it says, and the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. Now, who has the key to the bottomless pit? Does anybody know? Jesus does. He took it away from the devil and all. And when he died on the cross, he went to heaven and announced that the Messiah had come and died, and he led them out then of paradise, and he took them to heaven with him. Okay, And so now we see here this star falls from heaven. Who is this star? Well, this tells us who this star is. It says, and the fifth angel said, I saw a star fall from heaven and the earth, and to him, so that's an angel, okay, was given the key to the bottomless pit. So it's an angel, an important angel in heaven, that was given the key to the bottomless pit. And the bottomless pit, there's the bottomless pit, then there's hell. There's two different places. The bottomless pit is not hell here. There's a place where God is keeping angels who were cast out because of what happened during Noah's flood, before the flood, what angels were doing. Okay.
What were they doing, Pastor?
Huh?
What were they doing, sir?
A lot of them were homosexuals. They entered in men, make them what we call a gay person today, and all that was a big thing, and many things they were doing that was wrong, and that we find happening today. The Bible says, like it was in the days of Noah, it would be like today. You see that many of those things happening today. Okay, abortions and all that. So the devil, an abortion is. Now, if you've ever had an abortion, you can confess it to God, he'll forgive you. But it's murder. And it's on your record in heaven that you murdered a baby. Okay? Remember, the Bible says that the children belong to the Lord. He just lets us have them for a little while as they grow up. And they're the heritage of the Lord. So, but we've killed in America 67 million already through abortion. So some of the things that was happening. I mean, on and on it goes. He said, so anything wicked, the devil had something to do with it. But some of them were very, very wicked, so God put them in a bottomless pit. Okay, remember there's different groups. All angels aren't the same. Just like there's the seraphim and the archangel, there's different kind of angels. They're levels and all. It's like military. In the military, there's levels of the military. It's the same with the devil and a different kind of angel. But this angel came from heaven. He had the key to the bottomless pit, and also it was given to him. And all this key was. Now, you say, so we know who this angel was, and all, and so it's not, the subject is not here to go ahead and help us understand who the angel was. It was the fact that he's come to heaven, to earth now from heaven, and that's what counts. It's what's taking place. Verse 2 says, he opened the bottomless pit, and there rose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And so when he opens this pit and all, we see some things that begin to happen. That's in the middle of the earth somewhere. All of a sudden, all this smoke comes out. Oh, man. And it's just covering the earth, the whole earth. Okay? And also, that's pretty bad. So we see that's happening on earth now as we come to chapter 9. And so now we begin to see here what is happening. Now look in verse 3. As this smoke comes out, something else comes out. And there came out the smoke, a locust upon the earth. And unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Okay, and so we see here that they come out. So they're flying all over the earth, everywhere. Okay, there's some kind of a demon is what it is. And it was commanded to them, verse 4, they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither the green thing, neither any tree, but only those men that have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Remember, when you get saved, you're sealed. And now during this time, these 144,000 have been preaching, and many people have been getting saved. They have the seal, the Lord's in them. They have the seal. They're sealed. The Bible says we're sealed by the Holy Spirit when we get saved.
Amen.
Okay? And you can't hurt none of those saved people, but only those lost. You go get them. And so you got to understand that man step outside and he's looking everywhere to see if there's any coming for him. Oh yeah. That's how it's going to be. They're going to be afraid to get out of their house. A while back, the government said you can't come out of your house because you get the virus. Remember that?
Right.
Well, now they're going to be afraid to come out of the house because those scorpions, I'm sure that the president will say, now don't come out of your house because they'll get you. And, and they'll sting you with that long tail and all. And it says here, their stings and their tails. Their power was to hurt men 5 months. For 5 months, And also, if you're lost today, you get enough food and keep it in your house for 5 months. They'll get you. Okay? All righty. I mean, that can be scary. Okay, now look here in verse 7. And the king over them, which the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue is named Apollon. Well, that's the name then of this angel who came into the bottomless pit, and all these demons followed him. You know, they're a demon, they're a fallen angel. And now look at verse 12. One woe is past, behold, there come two more woes. So that was the woe he was talking about, what's going to happen when they come out of the bottomless pit. Okay? And so that tells us, though, that angel had to open that pit. That means the devil only have the key to his own house. Yeah, think about that. The devil does not have a key to hell. He does not have a key to his own house. So now we see that's what happens with that woe. And that, by the way, now we see here the sixth angel sounded, heard the voice of four horns of the golden altar, which is before God. So this is the sixth trumpet now. Remember, he's blowing the trumpet to let everybody know what's going to happen. And all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's this one right here is the sixth trumpet. It's the sixth horrible thing that's going to happen on earth during the tribulation. And you say, preacher, why is all those things going to happen? Okay, I'm going to let you know in a few minutes. We'll get to it. Okay. Why God allows that. Okay. And now the sixth trumpet is blown after that first woe and all. And so if you look here now in verse 14, he was saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And so in the bottom of the Euphrates somewhere, there's another place where God keeps some of these angels that were cast out of earth because of what happened with the people of Noah's time. Now you got to think about it. These demons were on the earth and all, and so they corrupted every human being on earth. Okay, every human being was corrupted except Noah and his family. They wouldn't get saved. They cursed God. They had everything ungodly against God. That's what these people were. So these demons were really out there doing their work. So God put them in that pit in the bottom of the Euphrates River. Okay.
All right.
Now, so we see here what's going to happen. Verse 15 says, and the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for they slay the third part of men. So now from that woe comes what's going to happen on earth next. A third of everybody's going to be slain now. Now we didn't saw many of them are going to die because there won't be enough food and of pestilences. But now the ones that are left alive, they're going to slay a third of them. They're going to die. They're going to slay them. So what are you going to do with all them dead people? They're going to be dead everywhere. Huh? So that's something to think about. And we have the answer to that, by the way. It's in all. So now look at verse 16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And so an army, this is 200 million people. 200,000 is an army of 200 million. They gathers for this time of destruction. And so now, this is in the trib, the Antichrist, who is already ruling the earth, is getting these 200 million men together. That's the army of 200 million. The United States has 320 million people. So that tells you almost, just think of over half of everybody that lives in America and all would make up that army. Think about that. And so he's making them up and all, because he wants to make them up. You say, why does he want to make that army up for? Because he wants to kill all the Jews. So that's what it amounts to. And to gather up the Christians that have been saved during this time, during the tribulation, because of the preaching of the 144,000. Okay? And all. And so we see here what's happening and all. So let's turn to chapter 10. Look at verse 1. He says, and also another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were sun, feet as pillars of fire. And so this is an angel, And the only one it could probably be is an archangel. That'd probably be Michael. Okay, but it don't say his name, but he's mighty. The Bible says he came down from heaven, so he's a mighty angel. Who's known as the mighty angel? That's it. An archangel is Michael. All right, so we pretty well know who that is. So we see what they're going to do, and let's take a look here now and see what happens. Verse 2 says, "And he had in his hand a little book open, and set his right foot upon the sea, his left foot on the earth." And so we see here that he has something to say to the world, okay, and all. And so verse 3 says, "And he cried with a loud voice, as a lion roareth, and when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices." Now you have to understand, when a lion cries out, if it's when it catches prey, it'll scream out so loud that it kind of puts their prey in shock. They just don't move. And so that's what's going to happen. So the world's not going to move. He's got something to say. He wants to tell them and all. And verse 3 says, and he cried with a loud voice as though a lion. So like a lion roars, he's going to tell them he has something that they need to know, okay, and all. Verse 4 now, we'll take a look at that. "And the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, and I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them now." In other words, God's telling us why he's dealing with them, with all these tragedies that God's allowing to happen on earth during the tribulation. And we saw some of the things going to happen. 1/3 of the grass is going to burn up, 1/3 of the trees, 1/3 of all the ships in the ocean are going to go down and sink. 1/3 of the fish are going to die. And many people live on fish. That's how they live. And especially Orientals, they're fond of fish. I am too. Maybe I should have been an Oriental. Love fish. Anyway. So he's trying to tell them what's going to happen in there, and he's getting ready for it. Now look at verse 7. "And in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to the servants of the prophets." And so now we see the 7th trumpet's going to sound. This is the last trumpet right here. It's going to sound. So there's another thing that's going to happen. He's trying to tell the earth. It's going to happen as he blows that trumpet. You got to remember, in the Old Testament, when they blew the trumpet, and every city had one, and every capital had one, they blew this trumpet, and people would stop and listen. And usually go down to where the king would be speaking, or the mayor of the city would be speaking. There was something important that had to be said. They didn't have newspaper then, but they had the trumpet, and the speaker go out and tell them what's going on. Okay, so in those days, you didn't have to be able to read. All you had to do was be able to hear. Yeah, and so they didn't have a newspaper. Okay, and so now we see here what's happening. His 7th angel sounds and all. And so that's very important and all. And so in other words, during this trip, he gave us 4 different pictures of what's going to happen in the tribulation. It's going to be pretty bad. Okay, now let's look at in chapter 11. I have to cover some of this pretty fast because we're running out of time to get this finished. And so I'm giving you the important things that's going to be happening during the trib. And everything in between, you can kind of fill it in by just reading there the chapters in your Bible. All right. Now, look here in verse 1, he says, "And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, Rise and measure the temple and the altar after them that worship therein." And so now we see that when the Lord comes up and God brings in Israel again, they're going to they're going to throw that temple up in probably a few weeks. You say, how can they do it so fast? It's already built. It's in a warehouse in Jerusalem. The Jews have been waiting for this to happen. They believe the Messiah is coming, but the one who's coming is going to be the Antichrist. It won't be the Christ. And so now we see here what's happening and how it is. And so let's go ahead and cover a little more and get a little picture of it, okay? And so the 7th trumpet and the 7th woe kind of go together, okay? And now this is what he's trying to tell them. If you look here in this next verse, in verse 3. And I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,000 days clothed in sackcloth. And so now these 2 prophets are going to come and all. They're going to stand in Jerusalem, and they're going to prophesy, and they're going to preach against this Antichrist. They're going to tell people how they need to be saved. I mean, they're going to remind them of the prophecies of the Bible, that the real Messiah has done come, and so on. They know what to preach and all. And so the question is, who are these 2 witnesses that are preaching? We know one of them, of course, is Elijah, because when Jesus came, they thought John the Baptist was Elijah. And if you remember that, but no, he wasn't Elijah, he was John the Baptist. And so they know he's coming. The Jews know he's coming, and that one is. But who's the second one? Does anybody have an idea?
I'd probably say Enoch.
Enoch? Okay, a lot of people, Enoch never died, you see, neither did Elijah. They were just taken up to heaven. But one of them could be John the Baptist. I mean, the Apostle John. The Apostle John, Rome could never kill him. Maybe he went up, we don't know. But we do have an idea. Now, verse 4, and all, let's look at this. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the God of earth, okay? And so, in other words, now, some things are going to happen and all. He is trying to let them know what's happening. Look at verse 5. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. If any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. So if anybody tries to hurt him, they'll just open his mouth, and flame of fire come flying out.
Right.
Now, people couldn't understand that because we invented that in World War II. It was the fire thrower. And the reason they invented that and worked to build that, because the German army and the Japanese army were entrenched what they call pillboxes. And all, they had a little window they could shoot out of. The only way you could get them is to get close enough to fire that gas that they had in them. It's called naphthalene. Anyway, it would fly out of there with pressure. It would burn, and it would catch everybody on fire that thing hit. They would run out of them pillboxes screaming and burning up. And so that's what that was developed. But people couldn't understand that, but we can now. You can open their mouth, that fire's going to fly out and all, and they get them. And so they're not going to mess around with Elijah and Moses, ever who it is, or Enoch, or the Apostle John. They're not going to mess with them. Verse 6 says, notice verse 6, these have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and smite the earth with all plagues, often as they will. Now, some believe it's going to be Moses because that's what he did down there in Egypt. If you know, he did some of those things. And so we see these things that are happening. Now, let's look here at verse 8. He said, and their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city. And so what happens is, finally, God's going to go ahead and take off of them and all, and the power they have to let them be killed. Okay? So these 2 witnesses are killed now. And that's what that verse 8 says. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, that's Jerusalem, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So that's Jerusalem. So that's where they're going to be. They're going to be laying there dead. Now, as they're laying there dead, this is what all these lost people are going to say. Okay? Well, here's what they're going to do. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days. Now, before they really had TV and the satellite, we used to figure out, how could that happen? How could all the world see it? But then they invented the satellite and all, and if you ever watch the Olympics, you can see it live of these Olympics going on. They just had some in Japan a few months back, but we could watch it and see everything they were doing while they were doing it.
Right.
But then they invented TV and the satellite that I knew. That was Bible prophecy coming the truth. The Bible is always right.
Right.
How many of you have a TV? Raise your hand. You have a TV, don't you? Well, anyway, so that's what it is. And now here's what those people are going to be doing. They're going to be around those dead bodies, and and they're going to be rejoicing. Look at that. They're over them. They're going to make merry. They're going to send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. They tormented them by telling them the truth. When you tell a lost person the truth, it torments them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They don't like it.
That's
They
right.
get mad.
That's right.
Some of them want to jump on you and beat on you. I've had them try to do that to me and all. And so we see what is happening here. And so they're there laying dead and all. Now let's look at verse 15 for a moment. Verse 15, what does that say? No, that's not right. Got to get you in the right place. Okay. Verse 11, and get that right. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life of God entered into them, and they stood up their feet. And great fear fell upon them which saw them. I just think these people rejoicing, giving each other all over the world. They're giving gifts to each other. And all of a sudden, the camera's on them. It's showing them dead every day, laying there, and they're rejoicing. All of a sudden, they stand up. There's nothing wrong with them. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. The world's mad and all. And so we see here that them killing them became a victory for God. Okay, now look at verse 12. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. They sent it up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. So the enemies of those enemies saw them go up in a cloud. So the TV camera had it on them. They just stood there and up they went. Okay? And so those are some of the things that are happening and all that are very important and all. So we look at this and see what's happening here during this scene. Now, verse 15 tells us, now it's going to be, all of this is happening on earth. You've got to understand, down here on earth. Now the scene is in heaven. Now something is happening in heaven, he tells us about. And so we see here, it says here, verse 15, And the seventh angel sounded, and there was a great voice in heaven saying, The kingdom of this world are become the kingdom of our Lord and his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And so he's announcing now that the Lord is coming. He's coming. The Lord's coming back. You see, the first time he came, he was on earth. That was the first time the Lord came. He came, he was on earth. The second time he is coming is when he comes back. Not here. He does not come to earth here. He's above the earth. And he calls out, and they're taken up. They're taken up just like the two witnesses were taken up. Okay? And so the second coming is when he comes back to the earth. The first coming is when he came the first time. The second coming is when he's going to come again. So they're letting the world know that he's coming, okay? And there's rejoicing, according to verse 16. 24 elders which sat before God in their seats fell upon their faces and worshiped God, saying, We give thee thanks, O Lord God Almighty, which art and was and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee the great power, thou hast reigned. Now, who remembers who these 24 elders are? Remember, we discussed those. There's 24 men. Who are they? Huh? The 12 apostles, that's half of them, or the other 12?
Jacob's sons.
The 12 patriarchs. They were the son of going back to the Old Testament, Jacob's sons. Okay, and so we see here what's happening here. Now we turn to chapter 12, verse 1. Okay, chapter 12, verse 1. This is the next great event's happening. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon upon her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. So we see here, this is a scene in heaven, okay? It's taking place in heaven. Remember, the scene has gone back to heaven. So we need to realize that. And that's what we see here and all. The scene is in heaven in verse 15. Okay, and so he tells us some things are going to happen there. It's in heaven now. The 24 elders are worshiping God in heaven. Okay, and now in chapter 12, verse 1, we see something else is happening in heaven. There appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. So who are these 12 stars? Those are the 12 tribes and all. And so we learned a little bit about that in Genesis 37:9. That Joseph had a dream and all. He saw them come before him. And so we know who that is. Now remember, this is in heaven now. And she being with child cried travailing in birth and pained as to be delivered. Okay. So this is talking about the promised Messiah that was in the Old Testament. It'd also be in the New Testament time and all. And Isaiah prophesied and spoke of him and all. And so we see, now look at verse 3. There appeared another wonder in heaven. This scene is in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. So who does this represent? This is the devil, okay? So the devil, and what does he do? He's gathering together the 10 horns and the 7 crowns upon their heads. That's the revived Roman Empire. If you go back and look at the map today, you can find that all of those countries in Europe were once the Roman Empire. They were part of the Roman Empire. But in the 7th century, the Romans decided that to let them go because you got to understand Rome was supporting a lot of them. So let them go and become their own country. And so France, one of them, England's one of them, Germany's one of them, Belgium, there's so many of them. There are 10 of them, but there's 7 kings. So some of them are ruled by by one king can maybe take care of 3 countries. That's what he's saying there. And so we see that's going to happen. Okay, now we see the Roman Empire is revived and all, and the devil is ruling it, and the Antichrist then has ruled over all the earth at that time. He gets it and all. And so we see these more and more is happening. Verse 4 says, and his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them into the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to be devoured, her child, as soon as it was born. And so now Satan is going to kill Israel. The Antichrist is going to kill Israel through Satan. Satan has entered into him, and they hate the Jews and they hate Christians. So now they're going to get Israel. They're going to try to round up every Christian. There'll be a lot of Christians who didn't take the mark of the beast. They're hiding in the mountains and the caves and everywhere, and a lot of them have learned how to live in the society without the mark. Just like today, many of us have learned to live in this society without taking the shot. You know, and the government says tells the companies they have to take the shot or you have to fire them. So the people who to get the shot, they want a paycheck. And 90% of the people now have had the vaccine and all. And so that's how the devil works. All right. So we see here what's happening and everything that is going to do everything he can against the woman because he's after her. Okay. Now look at verse 6. So Israel's doing everything they can. You know, you got to understand they were following the Antichrist. Now they found out who he really is. He's after him. Now look at verse 6. It says, the woman fled to the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God that they should feed her 3,203 days. So that is quite a while. Now, so you say, where's this place that God has prepared in the wilderness? Okay, our theologians have figured out that it's the rose red city of Petra. Petra was built by the Moabites going back into history. It was hewn into the rocks. Now, you got to understand, to get to Petra, that's what you have to see. There's a little trail that goes to a canyon, goes to this mountain range, and only 2 or 3 people at a time can go up it. So that means they could stand there, a small army could fight off an army trying to come through, because only 2 or 3 can go through. There's some places that hardly a horse can go through. And all the way to the top of Petra is built in this canyon up there on top. And it's a big, beautiful thing. It's there. It's real. There's places like that on Earth. There's a place like that in Utah. About 25 years ago, I had one of the members, his daddy was in charge of all of Utah, of the forests and the maps and all. And his uncle told him that there's a place up there that no human has ever been to. And so we decided to go. You have to climb this mountain and get up to it, and you finally come into another huge area and all. It's beautiful. And we did that because we thought that's where all the elk would be. So we got up there and there were no elk there. Well, how could they get there? You had to climb up to get it, go up this mountain. And it was up there. And the only thing we found that was from a human being was a weather balloon. They let them out, fly around. There was a busted weather balloon there in that canyon. It probably covered about 1,000 acres, maybe 600 acres, a square mile. It was really something to see. And B, were no humans. But it was hard enough getting up and hard enough getting down, too. But we did it. I was young then, too, It was real easy, and he was real easy. It was Scott. We were easy. We went there. And I took my son along. He was old enough to go. And so we see her. They'll go to the rose-red city of Petra. That's the only place they can go, And you got to remember now, during this time, there's smoke everywhere in the earth. So satellites are going to help to look down there and see where people are. All that smoke in the air. And by the way, a lot of Christians have gone up there to Petra. You can get up there, and they buried Bibles in jars and stuff, so that when those Jews get there, they can find a Bible. Okay. And so we get a picture. Okay, we have to. Verse 9 says, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, so he was cast out. Okay. He was cast out of heaven onto earth. Okay. So that's what happened to him. You need to know that. And so we see what's happening here, trying to get you through here. Okay, look at verse 11. Now, what's verse 11 say? Okay. Verse 11 tells us this. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives into death. So now, here's the Antichrist, and he's running him up. Then he pronounces, of course, the mark of the beast. We'll come to that later. You need to know about the mark of the beast. Do not miss another class. That is the most important thing you need to learn in this lecture. These lectures on Revelation. Yeah.
You mean it's not the vaccine?
Huh?
It's not the vaccine.
Oh man, it's going to be bad. Yeah. Okay, the mark of the beast. But the devil's going to be doing everything to get people. He's going to catch them and try to give them amnesty. They'll receive the mark of the beast. Remember, once you receive the mark of the beast, you have to go to hell. You chose the devil, is what it amounts to. Can I look here at this verse here in verse 11? Now, for those Christians who are alive on earth and who are believers, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. It's because they're saved, and through the blood of the Lamb, and through their testimony, they are not going to recant and take the mark of the beast. They're going to die first. I'll die before I take that mark. That's what it's saying. Mm-hmm. So there's power. It tells us there's power in the blood of Christ and in your testimony. There's great power in your testimony. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to tell anybody. You tell them about how you got saved. Amen. And what the Lord did for you. Amen. And all. And so there's power in that. And many Christians don't even know the great power that is in them and all that they can experience and use and such. So anyway, so we see that that's what's happening. So many of them are dying now and all. And so look at verse 15. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her be carried away in the flood. And so we see here that Israel is trying to flee. They left Jerusalem and all of Israel. The millions that are trying to get up to Petra, okay? They have to go through this little canyon and all. And so God allows a flood to come to stop the Antichrist from getting them and killing them, okay? Now, so we see this here. And verse 17 says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. Remember, the woman is Israel. And she went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God, have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. Now, Bible says that God divorced Israel. Right. She was a woman. And so he divorced her here. He divorced her. And he turned everything over to the church for the last 2,000 years. And all. And so we are the bride of Christ. If you've been saved in the New Testament, you're the bride of Christ. Don't forget that. That's who you are. You are the bride of Christ. Now you think of a young man getting married. He's just so happy he has a bride. And just consider that. Well, we're married to Christ. We're his bride. So don't forget that. So make sure you're a good bride. Don't be a bad one. Okay.
How would you define a bad bride?
Well, a bad bride, maybe a woman who don't cook for her husband. She curses all the time.
Okay.
She won't clean the house. She won't fix herself to look pretty for him. I mean, that's pretty bad.
Okay.
I mean, so you wouldn't want a wife like that. Some of you probably have had, but you don't want a wife like that. Yeah, and just think if your bride, if we're the bride and we go after another god, that's like today your bride goes sleep with another man.
That's right.
What that is, okay? And so that's what we are. All right, look a little further here, trying to get some of this covered. We have a few more minutes and we're in chapter 13. Let's get chapter 13. So don't forget, the Antichrist is the political leader, and the beast is the false prophet. Okay, and the false church is the Roman Catholic Church. Yeah.
Would you repeat that? What did you just say?
Yeah, the Antichrist is the political leader, okay,
All right.
and the beast is the false prophet. See, there's going to be a one world church,
Right.
and the false prophet's going to be in charge of that, okay. All right, now move a little further here, and so look in verse 1, and all. Now these two chapters deal with the same period of time and the same situation, so let's understand that, okay. He said here, verse 1 says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Upon his horns were 10 crowns, upon his heads the name of blasphemy." And so now we see here that there's a revival of the Roman Empire. And so the Antichrist is getting all of the Roman Empire together. Remember, he is no longer ruling from Jerusalem because the Jews rejected him. He was not the Messiah. He was a fake. Okay. Today there's a lot of false Christ in the world, in case you don't know about that. We live in Utah here, and they have another Christ than the Christ of Christianity. Okay. Their Christ is the brother of the devil. Did you know that? The brother of the devil, their Christ is. And so they have different, a lot of them have different Christs. But the real Christ is the Christ of the Bible, who came and died for us to shed his blood. He has said it, and he's in heaven now. Okay. And so we see here that as we look at chapter 13, verse 1, this is the kingdom represents the person who is the leader of the empire. So he becomes the leader of the empire. And so that's what we see happening here. Okay, look in this next verse. Move a little further here. On page 97, it talks about a little bit about more the names of the names of the Antichrist. He's referred to as the man of sin, the prince that shall come. He's referred to as the little horn. He's referred to as that wicked one. He's referred to as the Antichrist in Revelation, of course, the beast. He recognizes the beast. The word Antichrist is the name most often used to describe the coming world ruler. So that's who that describes. Okay. And so now we know that his identity is established for his empire and all. And so we get the picture here of who these are. But we need to look at verse 2 on the next page. You'll turn your book over to verse 2. And it says, and the beast which I saw like unto a leopard, his feet were as swift as a bear, his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Okay. It says the 3 animals named here are the same animals shown in Daniel chapter 7. The kingdoms of Egypt, of Babylon, the symbol of the lion, Medo-Persian Empire, the symbol of the beast, and then the Grecian Roman Empire, the symbol of the leopard. And you got to remember that Daniel prophesied in his time that he was during the time of Babylon, who was a world empire, he prophesied that these next great empires would come, and come they did. And just like he said they would, they began to come, and all the Persians came and conquered the Babylonians, and they took over the world. And then after him came the Greeks, and the Greeks came and conquered Assyria. They conquered here the Medo-Persians and took over the world. And so we see here what's happening. Then the Romans came and took over the world and had the Roman Empire. Romans had it the longest. They had a long empire, the Romans did. Lasted about 1,000 years. Yeah, it was a long empire. Okay, now look at verse 3. And I saw one of the heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Remember, this beast is the Antichrist. And so he was wounded in the head, and they all thought he would die. The world thought he would die. And probably some of his brains were sticking out where a bullet came through. And all they believed he was going to die. But they didn't. They fixed it. And all. And he didn't die. And the world wondered about this, but who is this guy that nobody can kill? Okay. Now look at verse 4. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So all the world, now remember the dragon is the devil here. They are worshiping the devil. The world is worshiping the devil. Okay, that has to do with the mark of the beast, by the way. It's recently called the mark of the beast. Okay. And now look at verse 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And so, who does blasphemies? Who lies? Okay, it's the devil. You should never lie, then make excuses for lying, because your sin will find you out. You didn't know that. Okay, the power that was given unto the beast to blaspheme God came from Satan. Daniel 7:25 tells us he speaks against the Most High. And so we see what's happening on earth here. The world now is worshiping the devil. On the whole earth, everywhere, all the people all over the world, and talk about New Zealand and Australia and China and India and Africa and the Middle East and the United States. They're worshiping the devil. They're worshiping him. You understand? So you better get your brother saved, or your aunt or your uncle, or your mother or daddy, or your kids saved, because they are going to worship the devil. Once we go up, the devil's going to take over. They're going to worship him. They're going to receive the mark of the beast. That shows that they believe him and that they belong to him. That's what that shows. It's like during the old days. Well, today on the big ranches, they brand a cow or a horse. And in every county is a brand inspector. So if somebody steals your cow and all, and you try to sell it, they check the brand and see it ain't yours. You're a thief. It belongs to that rancher. So they're marked. And it's the same with the devil. We're going to have a mark on our forehead and our arm. And that mark of the beast means this. It means that we belong to the devil. It's like when you brand a cow. We're branded. That's who we belong to. He said, verse 9, let any man have an ear, let him hear. Okay. And so verse 10, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience of the faith of the saints. And so this verse is another way of saying, whatsoever a man soweth, that's what he's going to reap. So you sow to the devil, that's what you're going to reap. That's what you're going to get when you sow to him. And all. And so we see here, it says here, and behold, verse 11, and behold, another beast coming up out of the earth, and had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. So that's the false prophet. Okay. The false prophet will probably be a pope. Okay. Yeah. He has all the one world. Who started the one world religion? Yeah, the Pope did. The Roman Catholic Church did. They've been doing everything to bring all the world into one religion. During my lifetime, they hated the Greek Catholics. Okay, the Roman Catholics hated them because they split off of them in 669 AD. they split off and started their own Catholic Church. They hated them and all. But the Pope and the Pontiff of the Greek Catholics met together and made peace. That happened in my life about 25 years ago.
Is that right?
Yeah, so y'all probably weren't here then, but or remember that. But they made peace. And now, about 3 or 4 years ago, the Pope made peace with the Muslims, okay? He made peace with them. He brought them in. They're all going to be together, okay? The Buddhists and the Muslims and all of them, it's going to be one world religion. And this Antichrist is going to rule them. I mean, this false prophet is going to rule them, okay? And so we need to understand that. Verse 13 says that he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. So he's going to convince people, the false prophet is, to worship the Antichrist through the powers he's going to be due. He's going to deceive them. Look at verse 14. And deceive it. That's the devil through the Antichrist, through the false prophet, deceive them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which hath the wound by a sword and did live. So the beast is the Antichrist. So they're going to, the false religion of the world, the money people are going to get them to worship it, the bakers of the world. The bankers are our biggest enemy in America today. Okay. And so we see here what's happening. And we come down to verse 18. He said, here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, the number 666. Okay. And so we see here getting here to this mark of the beast. We've got to take it. Let's look here again in verse 16 and 17. And this Antichrist, and he calls all, both small and great, rich and poor, free. Now, who's considered the free country of the world? The land of the free and the home of the brave. Who's that? Is that Mexico? Or Cuba? Yeah, there you go. And that does include California, because they're free to do anything wicked. And bond to receive a mark in their right hand and on their foreheads, and no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast of the number of his name. So you can't buy nothing, you can't sell nothing. So what does that mean? You can't buy nothing, you can't sell nothing. So that means that if you don't have the mark, you can't buy water for your house. That means you can't buy natural gas to heat it with. Oh, that means you can't buy electricity to see at night. Yeah. So if you don't have any water, what happens to you? You're not going to live long, huh? 3 or 4 days, you're dead. Yeah. And so he knows how to get rid of the Christians. Yeah, the ones who wouldn't take the mark of the beast. So there it is, the mark of the beast. In verse 13, so here's wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and this number is 666. The mark of the beast is 666. So you say, what's that mark going to be on your forehead? 666. Right there in the Bible. They're going to brand you. And we're probably going to electric thing and put it on your head and brand your skin, and they see it. They see it, and here comes 666. That's you and me. I ain't going to do it. I'm going to go up in the rapture. Okay. All right. Hey, we run out of time. I'm sorry. We went over a little bit. Okay. And so we'll start here.
But you have to have that to sell, everything. It's all your information. So
next time we'll be in chapter 4.
Excellent. And we'll have some more textbooks. I'm sorry that we don't have. I thought we had some left.
Rock of Ages.